Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Odyssey Recaps Below the Surface Edition. Just a reminder that if you'd like a shorter, shallower, and slightly sassier recap, head on over to my Just the Tea recaps. But for now, let's dive in. Today we're looking at chapter or book 2, titled by Emily Wilson as A Dangerous Journey. In the last chapter, the goddess Athena came down from Mount Olympus to help Odysseus' son Telemachus confront the suitors infesting the palace and encourages him to set off on a sea voyage to find word of his father. We left off with Telemachus telling the suitors they needed to leave the palace, but that he would speak to them more about it the next morning before he heads off to bed. Now, the sun rises on a new day in Ithaca. The second line in this chapter reads, Odysseus' well-beloved son. Opening it this way reinforces to us that though this family is separated and have been for almost all of Telemachus' life, the strong familial bonds are still there. Just because Odysseus isn't physically present with his son doesn't mean that he loves him any less. The Odyssey does this throughout the poem. It consistently reminds us of how much this family loves and misses each other, and that the primary motivation that drives all of them is to be reunited. So Telemachus, Odysseus' well-beloved son, wakes up, ready to confront the suitors. They gather in the square, and Athena poured a heavenly grace upon Telemachus, lending him credence and essentially giving him a performance boost. Telemachus takes his father's throne, ready to address the suitors. In a lot of ways, Athena has done what a father normally would have, helping him prepare for leadership, giving him the confidence to take the throne, and supporting him when he most needs it. Telemachus tells the gathered crowd that he needs help. I'm just going to read the first little bit of his speech because it's fantastic and really shows what he feels. He says, My family has suffered 2 disasters. First, I lost my father, who was as kind to you as if you also were his sons. Now, even worse, my house is being ripped apart. My wealth will soon be gone. The sons of all the nobles have shoved inside my house to court my mother against her wishes. They should go and ask Icarius, her father, to provide a dowry and choose who should be her husband. They are too scared. Instead, they haunt our house day after day and kill our cows and pigs and good fat goats. They feast and drink red wine, not caring if they waste it all. There is no man to save the house, no man like him, Odysseus. I cannot fight against them. I would be useless. I have had no training, but if I had the power, I would do it. He goes on to say that the suitors should be ashamed of their behavior and afraid of the wrath of their neighbors and the gods, specifically Zeus and Justice. He gets more and more impassioned and finally ends by bursting out crying. Keep in mind that masculine displays of emotion were seen very differently by an ancient Greek audience than by a modern audience. And if you want me to go into further detail about it, just let me know in the comments. But we can see the difference immediately here in the way the narrator says that the gathered crowd reacts to Telemachus' tears. Everyone was seized by pity. Sadly, this doesn't last long before Antinous speaks up. You may remember Antinous as the suitor from Book 1 who said that he hopes that Telemachus never gets to be king. Antinous calls Telemachus some names and then in typical abuser fashion accuses Telemachus of trying to embarrass them by pointing out their bad behavior. Then he says that actually this is really all Penelope's fault. He tells the gathered crowd that Penelope is very craftily playing them off against each other, giving them hope that she will pick someone but never committing to anyone. He says that they've been there for nearly 4 years, and that Penelope has been skillfully and cunningly leading them all on. She spent 3 years telling them that she couldn't choose a husband until she had finished weaving a burial shroud for her father-in-law, Laertes, to honor him when he dies. Every day she would weave it in front of them, but then at night she would secretly unravel it so that it never actually progressed. They only found out when a slave girl told them what she was doing, and they caught her and made her finish it right there in front of them. Antinous says that they won't leave until Penelope picks one of them to marry her and make them the new king of Ithaca. He says that Athena blessed Penelope with intelligence, great artistry, and skill, a finer mind than anyone has ever had before. Then he gives his ultimatum. If she wants to go on hurting us, her plans are contrary to destiny. We suitors will keep eating up your wealth and livelihood as long as she pursues this plan the gods have put inside her heart. For her, it may be glory, but for you, pure loss. We will not go back to our farms or anywhere until she picks a husband. So let's just take a step back for a moment and appreciate the immense pressure Penelope is under. Her husband has been away for 20 years. She has had to keep their family, their household, and the kingdom together in the hopes that he comes home. Giving up and remarrying isn't just accepting that Odysseus is dead. It could mean choosing a new ruler for the throne of Ithaca. Delaying has its own dangers, but accepting a proposal is a risk for all of Ithaca, not to mention her son, Telemachus. While she is still deciding who to marry, the suitors are discouraged from murdering him so as not to plunge her into a lengthy mourning period or risk her refusing to choose someone who may have murdered her son. But the longer she delays and the older Telemachus gets, the more of a threat he is to those who wish to steal his throne. It's an incredibly tense situation, fraught with danger at every turn, and she has performed a daily miracle, keeping all of these spinning plates in the air. Back to the story. Telemachus again tells Antinous to leave and calls on Zeus to curse Antinous and all the suitors and take revenge on them for their disgusting treatment of their hosts. Zeus listens and sends 2 eagles down to tear at the suitors' faces. The suitors are all stunned and wonder what this could possibly mean, though I don't really see how much clearer Zeus could have been with his bird-based messaging. Luckily, an old man named Halitherses is there, who specializes in bird omenry, and tells them that this is a grave warning for the suitors, that Odysseus is on his way home and they better leave now for their own safety. One of the suitors replies saying that he's pretty sure it's just birds being birds and definitely doesn't mean anything, and that Odysseus is for sure dead, and that Halitherses is just telling Telemachus what he wants to hear in hopes of compensation. If we couple this with what Telemachus has said in the last chapter about Penelope spending money on fake prophecies about Odysseus, we really see how difficult it is for them to trust anyone, and how many people are willing to exploit their love for Odysseus and fears of the future for personal gain. The suitor goes on to threaten both Telemachus and Halitherses, telling the latter that we will make you pay so much your heart will break, your pain will cut so deep. He then reminds Telemachus that the suitors won't leave or cease this torturous courtship until Penelope chooses one of them, and that if she doesn't choose soon, Telemachus's house will be devoured. Telemachus tells the suitors he is ready to make a deal. He will stop trying to kick them out if they will give him a ship and time to go to Sparta and Pylos for news about his father. If he does hear that he's alive, he and Penelope will wait 1 more year for him to return. But if he hears that Odysseus is dead, he will come home, perform the funeral rites, and marry off his mother to one of them. A man named Mentor stands up to give his opinion. Mentor is a friend of Odysseus, who Odysseus asked to look after his household while he was away. Mentor reminds the gathered crowd and the suitors that the Ithacans far outnumber the suitors, and basically gives an implied threat that the suitors should agree to Telemachus' terms. One of the suitors fires back that even if Odysseus himself came back, the suitors would easily kill him. Then says essentially that no one cares what Telemachus does, and he can try his journey, but he probably won't even make it off the island. Everyone leaves, and Telemachus heads down to the sea and prays to Athena, asking for her help. Athena arrives, this time shape-shifted into the form of Mentor. The poem says that she spoke to him with words that flew like birds, which is a relatively common descriptor, but here, following so closely on the heels of the scene with the eagle omens sent by Zeus, implies that what she says carries the weight of prophecy. She tells him that if he is really Odysseus' son, he will be able to complete this quest. She says, "It is rare for sons to be like fathers. Only a few are better, most are worse. But you will be no coward and no fool. You do possess your father's cunning mind, so there's hope you will do all these things." She tells him to ignore the suitors because they'll be dead soon and they're too ignorant to see the doom that's coming for them. Then she says, "You will achieve the journey that you seek, since I will go with you, just like a father." She says that she'll find a fast ship and skilled sailors, and tells him to go gather provisions for their journey. Telemachus obeys and heads home to gather supplies, but is stopped by the drunk suitors, led by Antinous, who I am really hoping is the first to die when the doom that Athena says is coming finally arrives. The suitors are mocking Telemachus, who tells them it's bad enough that they destroyed his inheritance when he was just a little boy, but now that he's bigger, he's going to go on his journey and he will get rid of them. The suitors start mocking him again and wondering how he's going to kill them. Then one suitor says, "Well, who knows? Perhaps he will get lost in that curved ship and die so far from all his family, just like his father. And what a pity that would be for us. Then we would have to share out all his wealth and give away the house itself to her, his mother, and the man who married her." Telemachus leaves them to their jokes and heads to the storeroom, which is guarded by his old nanny. He tells her he is going to look for word of his father and asks her to pack some food and the second best wine, saving the best for when Odysseus comes home. The nurse begins to cry and begs him not to go, calling him sweet child and saying, "Why do you want to go so far? You are an only child and dearly loved. The king Odysseus is gone, lost, far from home, and they will plot against you when you leave, scheming to murder you and share the wealth. Stay with us, we who love you. Do not go searching for danger out on restless seas. I think the juxtaposition of this speech with the suitor's cruelty in the scene before this one really shows us the impossible position Telemachus, and by extension all of Ithaca, is in. The suitors are openly talking about how much they want him to die, and how much easier it would be to make their seizure of the throne and Penelope if he did die. But then leaving has its own dangers. What if he does go missing just like his father, never to return? What will happen to Penelope and Ithaca then? But if he stays, what then? Does he simply sit and watch the suitors destroy everything his father built and fought for, waiting for them to try and murder him? But Telemachus has made up his mind. He tells his old nanny not to worry, that his trip has been blessed by the gods, and asks her not to tell his mother that he's gone for 12 days or until she notices he's missing. He doesn't want to worry her unduly. The nanny agrees and packs his provisions for him. Meanwhile, Athena takes the form of Telemachus and goes to the town recruiting the best sailors and asking for a ship. The townspeople readily agree to help, giving Athena, as Telemachus, a fast and well-made ship and an experienced and capable crew. To me, this shows that the people respect Telemachus far more than he might know. They were ready to help him embark on a dangerous journey to find his father, showing us how much both Odysseus and Telemachus are respected and cared for by the townspeople. Though there is, of course, another layer to this. When Odysseus left 20 years ago, he didn't go alone. He took with him a fleet of ships and many men from Ithaca, sons, fathers, brothers, husbands. So it's also possible that the townspeople support Telemachus in finding his father to also find out what happened to their own family members. After sourcing a ship and crew, Athena then takes the form of Mentor again and goes to tell Telemachus that everything is ready and it is time to set sail. Telemachus meets the crew and very skillfully commands them in loading the supplies and setting sail. Athena calls up a strong wind and they pour libations to the gods and set sail across the wine-dark sea in search of a lost king and salvation. And that's where the chapter ends. But just before I go, I'd like to note how claustrophobic this chapter feels. Something that really stands out is that the only people defending Ithaca from the suitors are an old man, a few elderly slaves, a boy, and a woman in an incredibly vulnerable and isolated position. The siege of the suitors on Ithaca feels like a horrifying parody of the siege of Troy, but this story is missing its hero. The endless stream of vaguely horrifying threats of violence and murder from the suitors fills every scene and moment with tension, and it's clear that Ithaca has lived with this undercurrent of fear for every moment of the 20 years Odysseus has been away. When Athena tells Telemachus that she will help him search for his father, for the first time he's able to seize control of his future, and in doing so takes the first steps to becoming a hero himself. Will it succeed? Tune in next time for Book 3 of Odyssey Recaps. See you there.